Like we're live. All right, so welcome back to another Sunday live stream. Surprisingly, it's a somewhat sunny day here in Central Florida, despite what is now Tropical Storm Isaias. I think that's how you say it. Coming down and is supposed to bring thunderstorms here shortly. Not really sure when. Anyway, we're not going to be talking about that anymore today. We are going to be talking about lighting, and then we are going to finish up with kind of wrapping up everything because next week is going to be the big, hopefully fun aquascaping setup that I'm going to be doing live on my Sunday live stream. So there's a lot to look forward to there. So I already have the tank, most of the materials. I have a few things I'm working on getting, and it should be ready to set up. I'll probably be working on getting an idea this week so that I'm not just spending hours fiddling around with how I want the layout to look. I'll have a bit of an idea going into it so that it's 30-40 minute video instead of 3 hours, which would be daunting and no one would sit through that. All right, but before we get started, two new, a plant and a geranium that we have recently set up. I said I'm going to be rotating through terrariums and geraniums behind me in these videos. So this one I brought over is a probably my favorite air plant right now that I have that I got maybe a month ago. Doing okay. It was flowering. Now it's not flowering anymore. So I'm hoping for pups soon if everything goes right. And then the mother plant will probably start to die back. Or so I'm told. I've never got that far. So we'll see how it goes. But also we have a geranium Wabikusa hybrid put together to practice my skills with Wabikusa. You can see how well that went in a second, and her skills with the geranium. I am going to be replacing the plants in the Wabikusa portion because it did not work out as well as planned, and maybe some better plant options are available. But this is still me trying to practice getting better with terrariums. Let me see. Can everyone hear that? Okay. I don't know if this mic is too far away from me. But so let me just show you that so we can get started. So obviously her geranium, it looks much better than my Wabikusa. Again, I will be adding different plants to try and make that look a little bit better. And hopefully this concept works because it would be a neat mixing between the underwater scape and the above or terrestrial scape, whatever you want to call that Wabikusa. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about lighting today. That's a pretty in-depth topic. I'm not going to be covering everything about, I don't feel the need to talk about Kelvin. I don't need to talk too much about wattage, all of that. Those are things I think other hobbyists could explain better. For layman's terms, Kelvin, it's how white or blue something looks, how close it is to natural sunlight, which I think is 6,500 or something like that. But it's going to make it kind of dictates the color of your tank or the way that the light looks in the tank. So that can help with the aesthetics purpose, but it also helps with plants. And that's where it's more important than just for aesthetics. Now, wattage, that's really just how much energy it's using. Something to consider if you're running a lot of tanks like I am. Too many lights on at one time, and then I turn on my dishwasher. But too many lights on that turn on at one time can short out and trip your breaker. So then you have to go find your circuit breaker, figure out which one, process. And so that's something to consider when you are purchasing lights. But for the most part, if it's a few tanks, 1 or 2, it's probably not going to be a problem. If it's 20 tanks, you might need to think about how much wattage each of your lights are doing, and higher end lights can use less wattage, but a better output. All right. So what I will probably be doing for the first half of the video is we will be talking about some lights that I use, my successes, other shortcomings with them, pros and cons, kind of a review type deal again. But I want to give you some options. Basically, the way I'll be describing it is low, medium, high tier. The low tier is going to grow your easy care plants, your Java moss, your Anubias, Java ferns, some stem plants or very slow growth on stem plants. Mediums are going to start kicking in your reds. You're a little more demanding or a little higher light plants like dwarf hairgrass. And also the basics or the beginnings to CO2. And then we will move into the high light plant or high end lights, which are going to be the ones you will want to run with CO2 or have a very big or deep tank. And these can help add a lot of light and put a lot of output, or that they're very customizable. In this day and age, especially for saltwater, and some very good freshwater lights are app controlled, and you can dial everything in exactly how well you want it. And I'll give an example of that here in a second. Now, before we break into what kind of lights, the first thing that's important is a timer. Everybody should have a timer. Do not be flicking your light on and off if it's a fish tank. If it's a gerarium like this guy behind me, okay, maybe. But still, a timer would be better. They're cheap. There's even Wi-Fi ones nowadays, so you can really dial your lighting system in. I know you can get those on Amazon. I plan on getting a bunch of them because I think it's cool, easy to use, and some of them will only actually take up one block, whereas bigger timers, if you've seen them or handled them, they can really cover a strip, and you may only be able to get 3 outlets on one 6 outlet strip because of all the timers. So keep that in mind too. But yes, timers, very important. The most important thing, because you need to control when your lights come on and off, how many hours they're doing. Consistency is key with keeping down the algae problems and really dialing your tank in. It's pretty much impossible if you are constantly changing the amount of lighting that your plants are going to get. All right, so enough with that. We'll basically start with a lot of these are going to be clip-ons. Most of these are going to have bigger options. I just don't have them available on hand, or if I do have them, they're zip tied to a rack or a shelf or something, so I can't easily get them off without breaking zip ties. And sorry guys, I'm not willing to do that because it's a pain to put back together. But I will kind of give you the brands, and you guys can search on your own for those options. Basically, all you're looking at from the clip-on up is a bigger size for a bigger tank, but the quality isn't going to change all too much. So this guy right here, this is the, hold on, let me get some light. There we go. So this is the Night Crew clip-on LED, and just pre-warning, if I lose power, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon, but I can see thunderstorms rolling in already. So if it cuts out, I might have lost power. I apologize. I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to pull this off today, no matter what, but the storm slowed down overnight, so I have a bit more time this morning to work. All right, but so this is the Night Crew clip-on LED. This is what I'd consider a good low-tech light for like a 10-gallon. You might be able to go medium on a nano tank. It does have a pretty decent output. These are very cheap lights. I think that's like $12 on Amazon. You can get them really quick So it's a good, simple light to set up. This may actually be the light I use for the build next week. This may be the one that I put on that tank, at least temporarily, just so you guys get an idea of how it should all be put together. But the Night Crew, cheap light, it breaks very easy. And by what I mean by that is it doesn't take water well. If it gets wet, you're pretty much going to lose it. So be very careful when placing that. That's why this one, I always have a cover over this. This goes on my quarantine tank. And there's always a cover to protect from any fish jumping out, but also to make sure that this doesn't get wet and then breaks. There is no real warranty for these guys, so that's not great, but you know, it's really cheap to get. So what do you expect? And this screw here, it's a little janky. I'm going to show you another light in a second that I like the screw a lot better, but it works. It clamps onto a side. Again, low light or low tech tank, probably for a 10-gallon, medium tech maybe for like a 5 nano type deal, or you know, a terrarium like that. In terms of color, it's very pure white with a little bit of blue in there, so it'd be okay for green plants, but past that, it's probably not going to be the most aesthetically pleasing. It definitely doesn't bring out the best colors and everything. That's what I mean. So next one, this is the Phoenix Stingray. I think you can get this on Amazon, but if you can't, this you can get on Aquarium Co-op, #free plug. And this is a pretty good light. It's good for, I'd say, low to medium on a nano tank, depending on the size, and definitely low tech on a 10-gallon, but you could easily do it on a 10. What I like about this light a lot, one, this screw right there, you can see that, is very easy. It's also a Phillips head, so you can actually put a screwdriver in there to twist it and really get it tightened down. It is a bit more durable. I've had this one for a few years now and never had an issue with it. And one other big bonus, excuse me, water break. One other big bonus is it does have little red bulbs, which they don't add much in terms of lighting strength, but what they do add is a nice splash of red color, which helps bring out the reds in your red plants. Which you could do some easier ones, maybe some Scarlet Temples or ARs, AR minis maybe, depending on the size of the tank. And I think you could pull off some Ludwigias, and this red lighting that this has will help do that. Excuse me again. Now, there is an entire line of Phoenix lights. Aquarium Co-op sells them of varying sizes, but they're all pretty much same design. Again, low to medium, depending on the size of the tank you're doing. But you may want to upgrade to the Phoenix View Gray or the 24/7 once you get to, I'd probably say looking at like a 29-gallon, unless you're going easy. And then definitely by a 40, I think you're going to have to upgrade just because the depth is so great. So, but overall, pretty cheap light for the quality that you get. So that's a good one to have to start out with. I think you'll be happy with the success you have if you're doing a low, maybe medium tech tank, and you just need a simple light. All right, moving on. The next one is, this is the thing. You can tell there's a lot of LED diodes in this little guy. I love this light. It's like 40 some bucks for this clip-on, but this runs my high-tech Fluval Flex, the 15-gallon. If you've ever, and if you guys ever want to see these lights in action, you can watch my videos. Just a quick moment. This is on the birdcage. So if you ever watch a birdcage video and want to see what the light looks like when it's on, you can watch it there. And then This Phoenix Fugray I have right now on both the gerariums, and I have it on the 15-gallon Flugel Flex. Now, again, I really like this because it's got a good number of red lights, so it does help bring out the reds in the plants. It's a pretty powerful light. I'm running an EI method with this thing and CO2, and it's working really well. I'm really pleased with the results. So this is a pretty solid light with a lot of power behind it. Again, it is $45, but honestly, depending on the tank dimensions, I think you could run a 20 cube with this thing at least. It's just a pretty powerful light. And the reds, it really does help make those reds pop. So that's a good option, I think, a little bit cheaper than the ONF, but could still be a good, useful choice when doing a high-tech over a very small area. Oh, says we're having connections issues. Well, we're going to see. We're going to keep going. Hopefully the connection will stay and I can get through this live stream before the rain starts. But this is the Night Crew Sky LED. Same company, obviously, as this guy. But I find this to be the step up from the Night Crew. They do have a regular brand. It's a little bit bulkier and jankier. This is a little more sleek. I like these more. It is a little more expensive, but only by a couple dollars, really. And I think the power output's a lot better. So I'm a much bigger fan of the Night Crew Sky LED over the regular Night Crews. Again, they're still whites and blues only, so the color isn't great unless you like it's for greens, or you're not really caring too much of what color is in the tank for like breeding or just growing simple plants. But that one I actually use on terrestrial plants a lot, and I've had really great success with that too. All of my grow bins have these Night Crew Sky LEDs on them, and I've had great results so far. So it's a good light for plant growers, for terrestrial plant growers as well. With that said, I do have the Phoenix Fugray bar light over the Wabikusa, and usually this guy. So if you check out my June fish room tour or July fish room, which should be coming out hopefully today. If we lose power, it won't happen, but I'm going to try and get the last videos done, everything edited, and in your hands hopefully by tonight. That's my goal, but don't hold me to it because I might lose power. I'm not really sure what's going to happen in the next 12-ish hours. All right, so we're moving on. This is the Aqua Sky, I think it is. I actually got this light for free from someone who just didn't want it anymore. And this one's a little janky. I think it broke pretty easy. The input is a little wobbly, so it can short out on times, or the light doesn't turn on unless you wiggle the port over here a little bit. But in terms of growth, I've grown everything from low to high tech with this light. If you've watched my June fish room or the July fish room coming out soon, this is the light that sits over top of the Blue Dream tank, the orange and yellow tank, the Guppy Mansion or the Guppy tank right now, and the fourth tank, which used to be the Cherry Shrimp tank, but that has now since changed. But you can see that I grow everything between Java Moss, Bacopa. I'm growing some Ludwigia, Rotalas. I'm growing, and in 4 where there's CO2, I'm growing Dwarf Baby Tears, Monte Carlo. So this light has done everything basically asked of it. I'm surprised that it can do such a spread, and I get very minimal algae. In fact, in the Blue Dream tank, that's the only tank I don't have hair algae mixed in with my moss, which is saying something because I do very little work on that tank. Dose it once a week. It gets a water change once a month, and I just top off regularly. And it no algae issues whatsoever. So I think this is a pretty good light. I don't honestly know how much it costs. The color isn't the most appealing for like fish colors and plant colors. It's a lot of blues and whites, but in terms of, oh, there's the rain. In terms of strength, it's a pretty good one. Now, we're going to finish up with, and if I get disconnected and lose power or something, we will do our wrap up and everything kind of while I am doing the live stream. That is an option that I've considered, especially as this storm got closer. So if that is the case, I can do that, and we'll just kind of talk. I'll kind of talk and scape at the same time, or do my best to do both at the same time, so you all can enjoy that. Anyway, this is the Fluval 3.0. This came, I bought this from Aquarium Co-op. Again, hashtag free plug, but good company, so as many as they want. Anyway, that light, which is on the Tree of Life. So if you've seen that video, you've probably noticed that light at some point in time. I've had it on my Plants for Profit tank. I've had it on the Shire tank. I've had it now on the Tree of Life tank. It's a very good light. I can't say, maybe it's a little expensive if you ask me, but that's only because it's gone up in price a good deal recently. But in terms of quality, it's spot on. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's easy to control. I use an app on my phone, and you can adjust everything down to the minute. It lets you set like up to 12 time points, so you can kind of like create almost like a slope, or some people do a siesta period where there's like morning sun and then afternoon sun. There are other lights you can do that, but in terms of the freshwater world, they're not super common. I know the saltwater world's got quite a few of them that do that now, but this guy, bang for your buck. I think this, when I bought it, was like $200, and it's a 36 to 48 inch. And I just put it up on hand clamps, and it helps add a little bit of height so I can get a further spread. But this easily covers a 40. Like, it's a perfect Plants for Profit 40-gallon tank. But I think it could do even higher tanks. The problem you would get is if it's starts to get any deeper than 18 inches, you're going to start having problems with the whole covering of the light. But if you work it right, I think you could even do further than 18 inches if you consider where you're placing your plants, depending on where you're placing your high-tech and low-tech plants. But that's a whole nother topic that we'll probably break into in Aquarium 200, which we're going to be on a hiatus from that for a little bit, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But great light, 3-year warranty. They're good about fixing it and sending a new one to you. So it's, I think, worth the money. It is a little bit of an investment, but I'm almost positive it's an investment I will make again sometime in the future, at least once. So that's, if I had to tell you 2 great lights. Let's see. Let me just finish up with this. Oh no, light down. There we go. This is the high-tech light. That's my number 1 recommendation. This is probably my medium tech light, if I had to argue for one. The Finex Fugray Plus, the one that is on the Wabikusa. You guys watch my fish room video. That is, I would even say medium to high tech, again, depending on the depth, but it's a pretty powerful light. There is a Phoenix 24/7, which does have a light cycle thing. It's not as customizable as the Fluval 3.0, but still a pretty good light, and it does do a pretty good job on bigger tanks too for a little bit or a lot of it cheaper than that. And then the Phoenix Stingray will probably get my nod as the low-tech light of choice. But with that said, all of those are pretty good options. So that's all I got for the basic Aquarium 101. We're going to quickly wrap up while I still can, as best and as quickly as I can. And then I will see you all next week. Again, my goal is to get the fish room tour out to you all this evening, weather permitted. I will be wrapping up with a live aquascaping video on next Sunday. So you all can tune into that. That should be a lot of fun. It'd be great if you guys are aquascaping alongside of me, but I know it could be a lot to get a tank on hand, but if you have one lying around you just want to put together, or maybe a terrarium or gerarium, that'd be awesome too. But I'm going to be putting together a tank on video, so hopefully you all can tune in and at least sit back and enjoy while I ramble and try and put this thing together. And then after that, for a little while, Sunday live streams will be talking about fitness and nutrition. Lots of information I want to share about that and be more successful and find the results you want. Hopefully I can help lead you all in that direction. And I will be, in conjunction with that, trying to do the more fitness videos, probably quicker stuff, different exercises, some maybe out-of-the-box exercises I've done in the past that you all might enjoy or find useful in your everyday routine. And I will still be putting out monthly fish room videos. That's my goal for now, at least, is I think enough happens in a month that you guys will enjoy seeing the changes every single month instead of quarterly or something. After looking at how much the fish room changed before me in a single month, I realized that a monthly video would kind of be good documentation for myself and hopefully enjoyable all for you. So stay tuned for that. All right, but we're going to finish up here with a wrapping it all up. So the first thing you need, obviously, is an aquarium of some kind of box that can hold water. Again, I am not a good artist, but say that's your aquarium. Okay? Then you got to think, well, what do you want to put it in? What do you want to put in it? Obviously, the most common answer you're going to get is fish. So you got to think about size. For most beginners, I would say nothing less than a 10, but the bigger the better, really, because it'll make chems much more easier to control. They don't fluctuate as much with a larger body of water. But let's say you got the typical 10-gallon, all right? So before you can even put fish in, you got to start putting it all together. So what you need is some kind of substrate. So there's substrate. We're going to do, I don't know, this is fluval stratum, sure. Good quality planted substrate because you want to get experimental and try and do a planted tank. So now you have your substrate. Maybe you want to go fancy and get some rocks or driftwood. So we'll say you got a little piece of, this is my terrible driftwood, but it's, you know, it kind of looks like the bird cage. That's what I'm going to. So there's a piece of driftwood that you have in there now. So now you also plan on getting some plants. Perfect. There's some plants. All right. So let's just say this is Java fern, something easy. So you don't really have to worry too much about fertilizers. But what else do you have to worry about if you want to put fish in here? Well, first thing you got to consider is light. You can leave fish in the dark all the time. They won't, I mean, it might be harder for them to find food, but it won't be the end of the world. But you need light to enjoy them. So let's say you got a little Night Crew clip-on LED thing, and it's, again, I'm no artist, and the three-dimensional thing doesn't work out well. So there's your little clip-on light. There you go. So now it's shooting lightning bolts into the tank. That's always good. But what else will you want? Well, you need some kind of filtration. So you have two options. Depending on what you want to get, you could either do a hang-on back, or maybe you're considering a sponge filter. Let's say you just had an extra hang-on back. You might have an extra sponge filter lying around. Depending on who you are, you might have various different things. But let's say this is your little hang-on back in the corner there. So there's your filtration. And you want to make sure you have all kinds of sponges and things in there to create biological media. So you got your lights, you got your pump, you got your plants, you got your driftwood, your substrate, your tank itself. The only other things you may want to consider, maybe you want a heater over here, depending on where you live. For me, heat isn't usually an issue because Central Florida doesn't really get cold enough to worry about, except for maybe a month in the winter. But that's your heater. It looks like a carrot or something. But that's a heater. Anyway. And so that's about the basics I would worry too much about this tank. Now, you have two options, well, three options really from there. You can either do a fishless cycle where you just put fish food in there and then it falls and turns into ammonia and then bacteria shows up and that bacteria cycle starts. It can take a little while, usually about 4 to 6 weeks, but that depends how heavily you're adding fish food in. You can do a fish in cycle where usually you'll get feeder fish that are super cheap because they will produce ammonia and waste and things, and that will cause bacteria to show up, but they'll also probably die in the process because they can't handle the ammonia. They might be able to, and you may end up being stuck with some feeder fish. So that's something to consider. Or you can do the last option, which is my favorite option, and that's seeding a tank through either another tank if you've got another one, or hopefully a friend or someone will help you do that. If you look on Facebook or find groups or local clubs, you can easily find someone that's willing to let you squeeze a sponge into a bucket or something so you can get good bacteria. So let's say I'm going to do that and I drop a sponge in here. Now, if you have the option, I would leave the sponge in there because I think you can let it sit. The bacteria will spread to other parts of the tank. But you also might want to give it a good squeeze so that it releases little bacteria out into the water. This is it releasing bacteria like that. So those are the basics that we'll probably be covering in next week's live stream. Off the top of my head, I don't think I'm going to be going over too many other things. Do you need an air stone? It's beneficial, yes, but if you have filtration that's causing enough surface agitation, basically imagine this is the top of the water. You want to see some ripples going on in there. That's the important thing. So if your filtration's doing enough of that work, in a lot of cases, no. I don't usually run air stones in most of my tanks. The exception being if there's a sponge filter. I consider a sponge filter basically an air stone because it pretty much does the same job. But the sponge filter has the added benefit of a larger biological surface for more bacteria. So I won't be putting an air stone in mine. Probably there is a chance I may use a sponge filter as my filtration in my tank. And if that's the case, then I guess you could say yes. But in most cases, I don't think it's necessary to do both. But if you have a lot of fish, maybe it is. But, look for gasping at the surface. for, fish going up to try and gulp air, those are signs that you don't have enough air in your tank, and it's something to worry about. But don't get it confused with fish trying to pick bubbles off or pick food off of the surface, or some fish that actually just gulp air. Pygmy cories gulp air, betas, gouramis, those all gulp air at the surface, and that's completely normal. So don't freak out if you see that. But that's going to be about everything we cover in the live stream next week. I may have a few other things, hints, tips, things that I throw in there, but nothing really important. And yes, I do plan on making it somewhat of an aquascape. So I'm going to be going fancy with rocks and sand and everything like that, but don't feel obligated to do that. Again, that's something I want to bring up in Aquarium 200, which we're not quite there yet. So we'll nail down Aquarium 100. I'm doing it because I plan on keeping the tank for a while, and so I want to make it so it's something that I enjoy looking at for the future. But maybe when we break into Aquarium 200, then you'll consider doing a fun little aquascape when we get that far, because I'll probably do another aquascaping live stream so that we can kind of tie in all these concepts, because I think that's the best way to do it. All right. So that's about all I got for today. If you guys have questions or comments about lighting or any aquarium stuff, leave them down in the comments below. I'll be sure to get back to you about them. As always, if you enjoyed this video, a like is greatly appreciated. If you're not already subscribed to my channel and you like this content, or you're excited about fitness and nutrition videos, then subscribe to my channel. Turn on that notification bell, because I am planning on getting these live streams pretty regularly. It seems to be 9 or 10 o'clock on Sundays, so that's what I plan or hope to keep on doing, so that I can keep it consistent for you all. And if you want some more content, Instagram and Facebook is a good place to see some of my in-depth pictures or some more regular updates on what's going on in the fish room than just the monthly fish video, which should hopefully be out tonight. Looks like the rain stopped, so I'm going to get on it so that I can get this video put together just in case we lose power, and I can try and get it all to you even if I have no power here. All right, so I will hopefully see you all next week in the aquascaping or aquarium build live stream, so you all can enjoy that. Hopefully you all find something to put together with me while I am setting up this tank, so we can kind of have a fun experience together, and maybe we can talk about whatever you're building at the same time, so it can be a lot of fun for everyone. But that's it. So I will see you all in the next video. Take care.